So in the last session, we discussed about some basic concepts of Java. They are, classes, objects, and some other basic OOPS concepts like data encapsulation, also inheritance, and as well as interfaces. Like so, these are the concepts we discussed in the um, last class. So in this class, we are venturing into some basics of the Java language. So as we discussed in the last class, last video, so in Java, eh, like a real life, whatever we see in real life objects, they are converted into software bundles called objects, and object group of objects of a similar category, which we represent that by class as a blueprint, right? From that we instantiate the objects. This is what we discussed. So as we also discussed that classes will have two components, or like one is fields, and second one is methods, right? This is what we discussed. Fields represent the state of the class or object, you may say, and whereas methods represents the behavior of the class. So if you see, like in software programming, what we generally do is we convert real life tasks into computer programming, right? So when we represent everything as a software object, so in like we what we generally do is in Java, we just create object for it, and in that object we create features of the objects as the attributes, and its behavior as the methods, right? Suppose if myself, like if I should be represent I should be represented as a object, like my name is like I'm a human. So if you want to represent human as an object, how would we do? We first define some of my attributes, like name. What is my name? That is Vikram. And another thing, age also you give, you mentioned, like at, and height, and weight, color. So all these are the attributes about human, right? Then what I do, I walk, I run, I work, so I eat. So these are all my behavior, right? So if, like in any software programming or in Java, if they want to represent a human like me in a software component, we need to write a object of me, right? So how do you write it? You define my details as state, and also you write as a method. So this is what. So so when you say why you need to write this is, you want to store details about me. So that object has to be stored, right? So tomorrow, if someone comes and, like, if someone wants to read my details, so it has to be stored in database, right? So if you want to store information about me in database, you, what you are doing, you are going to persist my state or my features or attributes, right? So for that only, uh, in Java programming language, we use state, are the state or attributes of that object, right? So to represent it, like we should give names. So for a human, to this he needs to be given a name, so we will have a corresponding name attribute, and also we have corresponding age attributes, right? So those attributes that we define there called variables. So variables, like these variables, if you see, if you are talking about the bicycle or cycle or bike, you see you have variables like the speed, gear, and cadence. So these are all variables, right? So here you see type of the variable, that is what kind of value it stores. Is it integer? Yeah, it is integer because it holds the value of integer. Suppose if you want to save the name of the bike, like Bajaj Pulsar or brand Bajaj, so then that will be the uh, textual type, right? So text type in Java we represent it as strings, so it will be string type. So like to represent the state of any object, we use first naming the fields, also the mentioning the type of the fields, right? So we have data types correspondingly and variables. So variables, like if we have to speak about it, variables are the containers of the data. They hold that data before persisting them into the database. And variables, by word itself, they say that its value can be changed. The methods may operate on the variables. So, and it may manipulate, update, do some operations on it. So its value can be changed. So variables hold the data, also its values can be changed. So, and that's what. So you just remember that the variables are the containers for the data. So Java programming language defines the following kind of variables. So there are some different types of variables: instance variables, class variables, local variables, and parameters. So these are the four types in variables. So instance variables, they are also called as non-static fields, because instance variables are of a particular instance. They are different for each object, right? So they have their own copy of the variable. So if I declare int speed, gear, these are all instance variables. So suppose when I create multiple objects, different types of objects, they may need not hold the same value, they may hold the different values. So for every new object, different copy will be created. They are not common fields. So that's why we call they are non-static fields. So those are called instance variables. See, here they say current speed of one bicycle is independent from the current speed of another. So they are unique to each instance of class. Each instance of class is nothing but object. It's a copy of a class, right? So, uh, so these are instance variables. Class variables means there can be some fixed like some variables which can hold fixed value across all the objects, right? For example, if you take the bike will have a fixed number of gears, right? So at most four gears, so that four gears is constant, right? So we cannot alter it, right? So those kind of fixed values, they are, since they are fixed and they are common to all objects, right? I mean objects which going to create from the class, we say them static fields. Static fields nothing but these are also variables, but they are fixed, they don't change. So only one copy, So only one copy will be created for all the objects, one common copy. So to see, I'll tell you one example here. See, if you, I'm defining a class here. So if you see, when you create bicycle, new bicycle, we'll get these are all, instance variable, means like you'll get each copy of these variables for each instance. So if you see here, bicycle demo, I'm creating new objects b1 and b2, right? So b1, b2, they hold different unique copy of each variables. So suppose if I see, I can see b1 dot, see cadence, they are getting, this cadence equals to 2 I am setting, and also here I am setting b2 dot cadence is equal to, I am setting 3, something like that. So if I print it now, you'll have two different yeah, see cadence here for second object I got 2, and for first object, since like default value is 0, right? For first object I created, it will, since I didn't change, it will be default value as 0. And for second object I created, I'm assigning cadence value as 3, right? It's different. And for second, no, second first b1 object I am putting it 2. So b2 object I am assigning cadence as 3. So if you see here, the values are different, right? So means each object has its own copy of the instance variables. That's why they are instance variable. But if I make some of the values as, uh, like common, I want to have a common field, like static. So those are static, we can make them as static. Then we can declare like this, static. So these are class level variables. So when I mention it as static, it is it is a common variable, means it is at the level of class, not at the level of the object. Okay. So if I do like this, see, so I don't need to, I just comment out all this code. See, for instance variables, I need to create an object for to print those states. But for class level variables, you don't need to create any object. You can directly access them. Like I have bicycle, right? This is the class. I can directly see. I'm getting directly access the you know gear. Like I can print like this directly. See here directly printing this one, line number 15. So what I mean to say that for static variables, since they are of class level, we don't need to create any object using, we don't need any object to print them, since they are at the class level. For instance variables like this, we need to, we need to, we need to create objects if you want to print them. See, I'll explain that. I'll comment in this line. See, if I want to print, see, we know only gear is the static variable, right? So we know only gear is the static variable, that is class level variable, and these two are, instance variables. So for printing instance variables, or accessing instance variable, we need to create objects of the bicycle. But for printing gear, we don't need any object because this is at the level of class. It's a common variable. It's common across all the objects, whether you have any number of objects or you don't have any objects also, you can access this gear. I'll show it. So we already accessed the here. Similarly, I want to print a object variable directly or instance variable directly. Compiler will give you the error, suppose, and you can't even access it. It will not be even visible. See, are you seeing any variable apart from gear? This since it's a class level, it is visible. But to access other variables, you need to create the objects. This is what I want to say. So that's about class variables and instance variables. These local variables, like suppose now this we know the number of gears is 6, right? So it's a common variable. But if you want that static variable not to be changed in the future, or no one is allowed to change that future, then we can declare it as a final. If we declare it as final, no one is allowed to change. We will talk about this final keyword in later. But if you want to make any variable as a constant, that it is not going to be changed, then you need to declare it as final static. Okay, so static is the at the level of class, and final makes it won't be changed in the future. Okay, so that's about this static variables. Then we'll talk about this local variables. So local variables, they are written inside a method. So they are local to that. They are different from object variables, because object variables represents the state, right? State of that object, right? So it stores its state in fields. But if you want to have a method to have its own define its own variables, then we can uh, we can create a local variable, and its scope is limited to that particular method, and it is not visible outside the uh, function, right? So means, like, if you declare a variable inside a function, sorry, inside a method, and if you want to access it outside the method, it won't be visible. So these are all temporary variables. So temporary variables, you can write them. And thing is that you don't need to initialize them when you write them. But the moment when you're going to use them, you need to initialize, otherwise it will throw an error. So that is what you need to remember. So if you see here, I want to give you a example bicycle demo. This is a method, right? Public static void main, it is also a method. So if I want to define a local variable, simple syntax is same as that of instance variable. I can define int I, int um, speed, something like that. Speed equals to int speed equals to 0. Speed equals to some 20. So if you see, this is the uh, local variable. Local variable means it is visible only inside this function. And if you access in see, if I want to print it, see, I can print this speed. I can print here, right? I can print it here. So if I wrote another method, like some void, methods will be written like this: void uh, print method. I am writing some same statement I want to print, like this one, right? This local variable, if I try to print it, it will say this speed is not, you know, speed cannot be resolved to a type. That means the speed, it is saying that, compiler saying that, okay, you're saying, you're asking me to print a speed, but I don't know what is speed. Means what is saying, we defined a print variable inside this method, and here we can print it, and if we access the same variable here, it is saying, giving us error, saying that we don't know what speed you are talking. So that means the scope of local variable is only limited to the method inside which it is defined. Outside of it, it is not visible or accessible. That is what local variable is all about, right? So that's about local variable. Then parameters. So parameters are also kind of variables. If you see here, they are, method will accept some inputs, right? Some inputs, right? So these args. So if you see, if you when you're writing method, if you, in the opening and closing this parenthesis, right, we may supply to the method any number of values or parameters from outside. So those we call parameters. Here by bicycle demo I wrote, right, some, sorry, where is here or where? So it's a constructor actually. Fine. Anyway, here where, okay. So I can supply some values to it. I wrote print uh, parameters int I and some other parameter int j. So I can supply parameters like this, and which I can print here, like uh, see see when I, what I'm doing, like my, it is saying that my method print accepts the parameters I comma j, so that whatever this method, these parameters which we can use inside the method for computation or whatever logic which we use. So these, right, these are called, you know, parameters. So these are also part of variables. These we cannot call members. So field variable, we cannot call them fields. But if you see these, whether it's these, right, this section we call them field. So these are parameters or variables. These are member variables. So that you need to remember. These are member variables or fields we can call. These are variables alone. These cannot be called, like these parameters cannot be called members. So that you need to remember. So ultimately we say, like these fields and these methods they are members of the class, so we can call them members. Since these are variables, we can also call them member variables. So these are just variables, these parameters are just variables, and we also discussed local variables. So that's all about variables. So, and this is all we discussed. What we discussed till now is types of variables, and we need to know the naming of the variables. So we can give any name to variables, but Java language has some rules and also some conventions on how to define, how to give the how to give the names of the variables. So those are like, one thing is they are case sensitive. Case sensitive means, like, if you give variable name, right? Here I have given variable name as cadence. If cadence, this cadence is in smaller case, and this cadence is not same as the, not same as, like, see, if you see cadence, I'm writing here, cadence is not same as cadence. So these two variables are considered different because our Java language is case sensitive. And second thing is that the variable names can be start with, they can be start with the dollar symbol or underscore, or any letter also it can start. So but thing is that convention is we should always should not, that is the rule. Means rule, what is the difference between rule and convention is, rule which says how it is allowed, convention is how we generally do. So even if we have allowed, if you are allowed, but we follow some accepted standards, right? Accepted standards are nothing but conventions. So it is a practice not to start with dollar or not to start with underscore. Even though they are allowed, we do not do. We generally write variable name starts with a capital letter, sorry, smaller case, followed by, so we can use any other either number or any digit or any word, alphabet, or you can use dollar also afterwards, once you start the name like this. So but you cannot use a space. So space is not allowed actually in variable names. So that is what. So, and if you want to the one thing is that we need to give a meaningful name, so that when you read that variable names you need to understand what it says. If you see here, gear and speed, they are easily understandable. You cannot use simple, like for speed I give yes and for gear I give G. We need to avoid that. Even though they are allowed, we need to avoid that because they are not meaningful, right? So core or code, whatever we read should be easily understandable. Like it should appear as a documentation, like a self-documenting code. Like, so we need to give proper names. If you want to club two different words, right? Like if you want to give uh, more than one word to a variable name, you can write like this: speed of a car. This is a variable name. If you say speed of car, so then once you write, each first letter of the each word should be in uppercase. Like, one, you start with a smaller case of the first word, then next words of first letter should be capital, like this. This is the way we need to write. So, and if you want to represent a constant, then you need to write like this: min value. Constants are always written like this. So, these, if you write uppercase letters, right? these uppercase scenario, all uppercase letter scenario will only be used in the case of constants, fixed values. So we'll see some accepted and non-accepted variables in Java. So if you see valid one by convention, this one first name, total volume, convention is self-descriptive, right? If you see, it clearly tells what is Java fun. This is also valid, but it's not recommended. It's a valid by rule. Starting with underscore is valid by rule, but not recommended by convention. So underscore is needs to avoid, and dollar symbol also valid, but we generally avoid it. It's not a good practice, but it is allowed. Constant, if you see, all caps underscores for static final constants. Constants means like which value won't change generally. Invalid, why this is invalid? Because in between the words we are using space, so that's why it's invalid. And this is also invalid because the variable name should not start with a digit. So, and these variables also should not use reserved keywords. This one is very important. Variable should not start with a keyword. Keywords are like some reserved words used by the language, Java itself. Like it has some reserved keywords have their own specific meaning, which will be understood by compiler, and we cannot use the reserved keywords. So this is about naming conventions. So this is all about Java variables, and in the next class we will next video we will discuss about data types. That's it my side from my side. Thanks.